He firmly believed in the superiority of the German or Aryan race over the other races. His dream was that the German Aryan race would soon conquer the world and establish an empire that would last for 1,000 years. Darwin's theory of evolution appeared to provide a scientific basis for Hitler's own racist theories. Hitler also derived ideological support from the works of Heinrich von Treitschke, the racist German historian. Treitschke was greatly influenced by Darwin's theory of evolution and based his own racist views on Darwinism. He said, "Nations can only evolve through a fierce struggle similar to Darwin's struggle for existence." Hitler also derived inspiration from Darwin's struggle for existence. The name of his famous book, Mein Kampf, which means My Struggle, was a mere expression of this Darwinist concept. Indeed, Hitler, just like Darwin, rated the non-European races as little more than apes, and added, "Take away the Nordic Germans, and nothing remains but the dance of apes." The basis for the evolutionist views of the Nazis lay in the concept of eugenics. Eugenics meant the improving of the human race by weeding out sick and handicapped people and increasing the number of healthy individuals. According to the theory of eugenics, the human race could be improved in the same way that better kinds of animals can be bred by mating healthy specimens. As might be expected, the eugenicists were simply the Darwinists. At the head of the eugenics movement in England came Charles Darwin's cousin, Francis Galton, and his son, Leonard Darwin. It was evident that the theory of eugenics was a natural consequence of Darwinism. This fact is also made very clear in publications that promote this dubious science. To quote but one, eugenics is the self-regulation of one's own evolution. The first advocator and promoter of eugenics in Germany was Ernst Haeckel, the famous evolutionary biologist. He advanced the theory of recapitulation, which proposed that embryos of different species resembled one another. It was later realized that Haeckel made forgeries in the drawings that he used to propagate his assertion. Haeckel falsified his drawings in order to show fish, human, and chicken embryos were similar to one another. Some parts of the embryos he removed, and others he distorted. Even Haeckel himself later confessed that his drawings were works of forgery. However, evolutionist circles turned a blind eye to the forgery just to sustain the theory. While producing scientific forgeries, Haeckel also spread the eugenics propaganda. He suggested that disabled newborn babies should be killed as soon as possible in order to speed up the process of evolution in society. He went further and proposed that disabled, mentally retarded, and the genetically sick should be killed off right away. Otherwise, Haeckel argued, these people would place a burden on society and slow down evolution. Haeckel died in 1919, but the Nazis inherited his cruel ideas. A short while after Hitler seized power, he launched an official eugenics policy. The mentally retarded, the disabled, and those having hereditary diseases were collected in special sterilization centers. These people were considered parasites who posed a threat to the purity of the German race and hindered the progress of evolution. Indeed, in a short time, these isolated people started to be murdered at Hitler's secret command. In his effort to speed up the so-called evolution of the German race, Hitler murdered many people. Meanwhile, he pursued another requirement of eugenics. Young men and women with blonde hair and blue eyes, considered typical specimens of the pure German race, were encouraged to have sexual relations with one another. In 1935, special reproduction farms were established. SS officers frequently visited these farms, where young women who met the Aryan criteria had been housed. The illegitimate babies born on these farms were to become the future soldiers of the German Reich. In order to improve the so-called superiority of the Aryan race, Nazis were resorting to Darwinian concepts. Darwin had suggested that the size of the human skull increased as he climbed the evolutionary ladder. The Nazis embraced this idea fiercely and set about taking skull measurements to show that the German race was superior. In all corners of Nazi Germany, comparisons were made showing that German skulls were larger than those of other races. Traits like teeth, eyes, hair were evaluated according to the evolutionist criteria. Individuals whose measurements were found to be contrary to official German race specifications would be annihilated according to the Nazi eugenics policy. All these outlandish principles were applied in the name of Darwinism. Michael Grodin, the American historian and the writer of the book The Nazi Doctors and the Nuremberg Code, states this fact.
That there was a perfect meshing of Nazi ideology and social Darwinism and racial hygiene as it developed at the turn of the century. That physicians had a notion that there was social deviance and there was behavioral deviance that somehow was genetically linked, and there was good genes and bad genes. And so this social Darwinism, which by the way was around the world, and the Nazi physicians pointed to the US as where they learned a lot of the racial hygiene.
George Stein, the American researcher, explains this subject in American Scientist magazine. National Socialism, whatever else it may have been, was ultimately the first fully self-conscious attempt to organize a political community on a basis of an explicit biopolicy. A biopolicy fully congruent with the scientific facts of the Darwinian revolution. Sir Arthur Keith, the famous evolutionist, commented about Hitler. The German Führer is an evolutionist. He has consciously sought to make the practice of German policy conform to the theory of evolution. Another important reason for Hitler's evolutionism is the fact that he saw the theory as a weapon against religious beliefs. Hitler had a deep-rooted hatred of monotheistic faith. Religious virtues like love, mercy, and modesty were a great hindrance to the merciless and militaristic Aryan race model.
Wirtschaftlich zu vernichten, dass ganz Deutschland nicht mehr länger untätig zusehen könnte.
That is why, from the time the Nazis seized power in 1933, they aimed for a return to ancient pagan religion for German society.